right, you internet creatures. I'm Dave Rubin, and today we have another Friday panel extravaganza for you. Joining me today are three first-time guests to the show. Editor-in-Chief from the Post Millennial, Libby Emmons. Author of the upcoming book, Am I Crazy? An Unapologetic Patriot Takes on the Insanity of Today's Woke World. Chad Prather, who's also running for governor of Texas. We'll get into that. And opinion journalist at the New York Post, the often banned from Twitter New York Post, Rav Arora. Welcome to the Rubin Report, everybody.
Thanks.
Hey, great to be here.
All right, I'm glad to have the three of you here. I've wanted to have all of you on for quite some time. There's a lot to unpack today. We're just going to review some of the nonsense of the week. But let's start with Biden, because he gave a speech yesterday that was just an endless series of lies. Almost everything he said was either an outright lie, either intentionally or perhaps not intentionally. If he doesn't know what he's saying, it's a little unclear at this point. So let's throw to some video. Here's Biden on how vaccinated people can't spread COVID.
And we know there is no other way to beat the pandemic than to get the vast majority of Americans vaccinated. It's as simple as that. And to spread to our children, to spread throughout society, in our hospitals, or the risk of other variants, it's all dangerous and obvious, but we're still not there. We have to beat this thing. So while I didn't race to do it right away, that's why I've had to move toward requirements that everyone get vaccinated where I had the authority to do that. That wasn't my first instinct. My administration is now requiring federal workers to be vaccinated. We've also required federal contractors to be vaccinated. If you have a contract with the federal government working for the federal government, you have to be vaccinated. We're requiring active duty military to be vaccinated. We're making sure healthcare workers are vaccinated, because if you seek care at a healthcare facility, you should have the certainty that the people providing that care are protected from COVID and cannot spread it to you.
Okay, so the last line there is the key line. The implication being that if you are vaccinated, you cannot spread COVID. Libby, before I throw it to you, from NBC this week, when infected with the Delta variant, a given contact was 65% less likely to test positive if the person from whom the exposure occurred was fully vaccinated with 2 doses of the Pfizer vaccine. So yes, it sounds like it might do something to stop the spread if you're vaccinated, but he's absolutely lying there. He's saying if you're vaccinated, you're not going to spread. You've been writing a bit about this.
I have been writing about this, and that speech was interesting for a number of reasons, one of which was that much of it was entirely nonsensical. The lies, as you point out, as well. But prior to his giving a speech, there were 3 people that gave a speech beforehand, spoke, Lori Lightfoot among them, and they were all wearing masks. They were wearing masks at the microphone, and undoubtedly they are all vaccinated. So if vaccinated can't spread COVID, why is everybody all masked up? I think we keep asking this question. And as to what Biden was saying in terms of his original instinct was not to require any sort of mandates for vaccines, which of course he said, I believe, was it in December, something along those lines. He was very clear about that. Now he's decided that the crisis is so big, and of course this is a crisis president. If there wasn't a crisis, he wouldn't know how to comport himself. But now the crisis is so big that he has to force Americans to do things. He has to give up the principles that we all abide by as Americans who live under the Constitution. And what he's forgetting is that our rights are not his to give away. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have this power. These are our rights. It's up to us. We get to decide what happens to us medically, or at least that's what the Democrats have been telling us for my entire life. So yeah, I think it's absolutely insane the way that he's behaving. And these nonsensical speeches, they keep trotting him out every day to just unleash this torrent of nothingness upon everybody. It's madness.
Right. So 2 other quick points on that. When he said the only way we get out of this is basically to get everyone vaccinated, he's saying 98%. I mean, that makes no sense if we're to believe that 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Right. That was the original thing. Remember that a year and a half ago? Mm-hmm. So were they all lying about that? And then he also said because of the spread, he said because of the spread to children, and as I have repeated about 1,000 times this week, CDC numbers, not Dave Rubin numbers, 0.002% of children die of COVID, okay? Not 2%.
It is literally
0.002.
less than 500 since the beginning of the pandemic.
Right,
Less
and that's
than
not
500.
to diminish those kids' lives, but
Not at all.
here we are. Chad, you are in
Yeah.
the free state, at least the free state for now, of Texas. How you feeling about this whole situation and that speech in particular?
So first of all, he's not lying. He just doesn't know what he's saying. He has no clue.
You're being generous, yeah.
He's a puppet, right? Somebody's got their hand up his ass and moving his mouth. Joe Biden, after the Afghanistan debacle, ought to be in prison or at least in the basement of the old folks' home licking the window. I mean, the guy is so addle-brained that somebody has to help him chew in order to eat pudding. But it doesn't matter. He was telling the truth. Let's say he was telling the truth, Dave. And the vaccines work, and he wants everybody to get the vaccine. You know, the beautiful thing about the U.S. Constitution is that it wasn't written to keep you safe, and it wasn't written to keep you healthy. The Constitution was written to keep you free. So regardless of whether or not the vaccine is working or not, to mandate this in such a way is unconstitutional. It's a violation of people's liberties. It's a violation of people's rights. If you worked for me, let's say you're a female and you worked for me and I came to you as a male and I said, hey, you got to do something for me if you want to keep your job, you would sue me under you would go crazy. This is the exact same thing. You're asking your employees to insert something in their body in order to keep their jobs. That's the essence of this mandate. And this is what he's passing down. This is what he's talking about. But it's not a lie. It's just more of the pablum that he's spitting out. And he doesn't even remember what he said in days past in regards to the.
Right. So in essence, he's either just a blatant liar or he has no idea what he's talking about. And he's just reading whatever they put in front of him. It's hard to say which one of those is true. But you're making a great point about the vaccines related to mandates in terms of work. I have my director in here and my producer in this room with me right now. How insane would it be if I was to say to them, guys, the only way you can continue to work for me is if you get injected with this? Like, what right? I thought we're not into slavery anymore. What right would I have to have them do that? Rav, are we just crazy freedom-loving people? You're up in Canada. Are us Americans, are we just too focused on freedom? You're in Canada. What's going on over there?
Yeah, no, it's very, very similar. I would say it's probably worse here with the restrictions. Trudeau just announced the restrictions on air travel. You have to be vaccinated by November 30th. You still have a window up until the 30th of November to you opt for a negative COVID test and be able to travel. After that, you have to be vaccinated, which is a constitutional violation in terms of freedom for movement, to be able to move around and go places. But in that Biden speech, I think there's something really important to point out here, which is what he said about the vaccinated not being able to spread COVID. Like the idea that we have to beat the pandemic by getting everybody vaccinated. Therefore, the spread will be reduced or people won't spread at all. Okay, that is absolute scientific fiction. We know that. The vaccines are incredibly effective at preventing serious illness or death, and that seems to remain persistent after a number of months. It seems to offer long-lasting protection against severe infection or death. However, after several months, according to a recent study in Qatar that Dr. Jay Bhattacharya at Stanford recently appointed me to, it showed that after about 7 or 8 months, the infection rate among the vaccinated is roughly equal to that of the unvaccinated and offers very little, if negligible, protection against infection. And so we have real world data also supporting this point. We see Israel highly vaccinated. They're seeing devastating third and fourth waves. And that's why Pfizer and Moderna, they're pushing for the booster shot, because they know the protection against infection is very, very short. The promise of the vaccine has been exaggerated. And so, this idea is just completely false of the vaccinated not being able to infect others after a few months.
And by the way, to your point about planes, what they're doing in Canada, Trudeau saying you can't get on a plane after November 30th, in effect, if you're not vaccinated. Every time that you get on a plane, all they do now is tell you how safe planes are. They show you videos of masked people spraying things with green guns, and they tell you about the air filters and that it's the safest place possibly to be. So are they lying, or is Biden lying, or Trudeau lying? It's a little unclear. We got one more from Biden, because now it's not just that the unvaccinated are going to get you sick and they're most likely racist, they're also tanking the economy.
We're headed in the right direction if we keep our eye on the ball here. We still have a long way to go. The fact is, this has been a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Unvaccinated. The unvaccinated overcrowd our hospitals, overrunning emergency rooms and intensive care units. The unvaccinated patients are leaving no room for someone with a heart attack or in need of a cancer operation, and so much more because they can't get into the ICU, they can't get into the operating rooms. The unvaccinated also put our economy at risk because people are reluctant to go out. Think about this. Even in places where there is no restriction on going to restaurants and gyms and movie theaters, people are not going in anywhere near the numbers because they're worried they're going to get sick.
Oh, the lies. Chad, I'm going to throw this one to you to start. First off, overcrowded hospitals, people dying on the streets, just gurneys everywhere. Haven't seen any video or pictures of that. Are you guys seeing that in Texas, and for some reason they just can't get that out on the internet?
No, but I'll tell you what I am seeing. I was riding down the street in Texas the other day, and I saw a billboard that had a picture of medical professionals on it, and it said, "Not all heroes wear masks." Well, apparently not all heroes get to keep their jobs unless they get vaccinated. In the state of Texas. Or why would you fire medical professionals if this were the case? If this were the situation, why would we be giving termination letters and ultimatums to the people who were in the trenches for 18 months dealing with this crisis? And to his point about people not going to public places, tomorrow is Saturday, which is college football season. And every stadium in America will be jam-packed, shouting, "Let's go, Brandon." And it's going to be people getting together, just super spreader events.
Yeah, the beauty of us all coming together to chant, "Let's go, Brandon." That is, see, they say we have no national cohesion, but maybe not. Libby, to that point, this people are reluctant to go out thing. If to the degree that that's true, could that be because everything they say is so conflicting and confusing and they're making everybody afraid and scared?
Yeah, I also think it's entirely untrue. I live in New York City, and when I walk out into the streets in Brooklyn, they are packed just like they used to be. Downtown Manhattan is full. It's been full for months and months and months and months. Yep. So there's people everywhere. None of these people seem afraid. They're, in Brooklyn, there's a lot of people wearing masks. There's a lot of people wearing masks when they walk around, but as soon as they sit down at a cafe and get wasted, they take their masks off and then they wander around and puke on each other just like they used to. And I think that, the unvaccinated are just the new grandma killers. Biden always has someone to blame. And this is just the latest iteration. And like you said, these people are likely racist, Trump supporting, redneck, grandma killing, anti-vaxxer conspiracy theorists. And as soon as we get rid of them, maybe they're also speaking at school board meetings, then of course the nation will be far better off. And as to the confusion, I think confusion is much of the point. Yep. So long as nobody has any idea what the fuck they're talking about and what they're saying and what they mean, we'll just all throw up our hands and say, all right, fine, we don't know what's going on. Why don't you just tell us what to do? And I think that's much of the goal.
That is a well-placed F-bomb.
Yeah. And we'll see it with climate change, too. That's the next